everyone, as promised, I am here with one of my best friends, known him for many, many years, John Cruz. You know, early on in the year when we started this SPROfiles series, I said we were going to be doing all kinds of different stuff. Well, John, like I myself, has been designing baits for SPRO for even more years than I have. Famous for the Little John, he's got the McClelland. I mean, so many different things John's done. We're sitting down today, we're going to do a little bit of fishing, but just wanted to go back and kind of walk through where it all started. I mean, when did it all start and why did it start with SPRO and the Little John series?
I mean, it was close to 20 years ago that I started with SPRO. And they were a company that had very high quality baits, but they needed pro level input for their baits.
Yeah.
So I think Dean Rojas was the first pro to start with them, started designing that frog. They wanted to expand to designing some new crankbaits. Dean got me connected with SPRO. They said, what do you want to design? I said, I know exactly what I want. Mm-hmm. I had a flat-sided crankbait that I liked. I said, let's take this frame, but let's change the bill angle. Let's change the body size a little bit. And let's figure out how to put a weight transfer system in it so that we can make really long casts with a flat-sided crankbait, which at the time did not exist.
Think of it. I mean, like how many different series? I mean, I think I know, but I mean, how many different? There's the Little John, the MD, the DD. I mean, you've got how many different series of Little Johns now?
I honestly have lost track. We've got a ton of different baits. We did the Little John MD, and then next we did the Little John DD, deep diver.
Yeah.
And that's been I've caught thousands of fish on that DD.
There's one right there.
Uh-huh. Little John.
Feels like a pretty good one.
Okay.
Bad.
Okay.
But as I was saying, I mean, during the shad spawn, and it isn't really going on here yet, but during the shad spawn, I think I have caught more bass on this Little John than any other bait that I have ever thrown.
You getting worked over here. You getting worked. Got a little largemouth.
Yep.
What you know about it? What you know about that largemouth?
That is what the old Little John was all about right there. Caught a many a bass on Little John.
Look at him. That's awesome.
Getting it done with the Little John original.
Right, so for the Little Johns, we started with one of the computer chip style bills. There is a difference between a plastic bill and a computer chip bill. Any of the SPRO baits that I've designed that have the line tie in the body of the bait, like this right here, we want to run with the computer chip style bill. That bill has a different feel. It has a different sound when it's hitting the bottom. But any of the crankbaits that have the line tie in the bill, you really have to go with the plastic bill. You don't have a good consistent manufacturing option to put that computer chip bill in there. So that's the difference with this. This is a Little John Micro. This is the latest. This is the latest.
And see, you did something there that I would probably not have done during the shad spawn.
What's that?
You picked up a chartreuse, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm
spotted
like
bass.
all about shad colors, and
yeah, something different. I think helps them key in on it. That's spotted
bass.
Choked it, buddy.
Yeah, that's the reason he got that chartreuse from right there.
He likes it. Yep. You know, we talked about the Little John, original Little John and the MD. They run only about 3 to 4 feet difference, but their vibrations are totally different. I've seen times when they want one and not the other.
Part of that's because of the bill, though, right? The MD has a plastic bill, where the original Little John has computer chip, right?
Well, it's where the line tie is and the bill angle. They're a lot different. The bill shape is different. And all of these baits that we did, like even with the original Little John, we probably went through 10 different samples before we dialed in the vibration to get it just right. The MD, 10 different ones. This one, the Baby Fat John, I literally had at least 15 different bill sizes, bill angles, bill shapes, line tie positions. I had all these different. I had it to where it was a really good running little bait. And I remember Kentaro at the time, who was running SPRO, he said, is it what you want? I said, not exactly, but it runs really good. He goes, no, you make it exactly what you want. One of the misconceptions that I've had for years and years is that when you're throwing crankbaits, you want it to look the most natural possible. sometimes you want the opposite. You want like super bright. You want something that's going to stand out, because those fish, I feel like they see a lot of shad come by, like shad in the distance. They're looking for one to key in on to grab. And I feel like that a lot of times when they see one that's like a little brighter, a little different color, that they'll key in on that one, and then they'll zoom in and go eat it.
That's probably the biggest thing. You know, I was a big balsa thrower for early years. You know, I threw a lot of the old Bagley baits and various balsa style baits back in my early years, and that was the biggest qualm we had with them, is they didn't cast. And that was the thing that blew me away when the Little John series first came with that tungsten transfer. Who thought of that? I mean, was that your idea? Was that somebody in engineering? I mean, how do things like that come together? That
was a collaborative effort. I had an idea of how I thought we could make it work using magnets. And they said, we might have a simpler method, because the first weight transfer system we had, it was a hard ball in it. Yeah. And it was very loud. It made a very loud rattle. I said, I want it subtle. I want it really, really quiet. I don't want any rattles in this bait. I just want the vibration to be what they key in on, the vibration of the bait. Yeah. And they said, okay. So they went back to the people and they said, we can make a soft tungsten ball that is almost silent. I said, well, let's try it. So I got those back in, and sure enough, it worked. And that's kind of what we use in that Little John lineup where it's applicable. So some of the baits, like the micro, it's so small that the weight transfer, the ball can't be big enough to really make a difference. So some of the baits have it fixed, and in the Fat John, it's fixed because it's a big bulbous bait. It doesn't need a weight transfer system, and it also just makes the baits run a little bit more consistent. But with the Little John, because the body is just big enough, that little weight transfer system makes a huge difference. But the design process is one of those things I love, taking the concept, putting it into samples, testing it, refining it, getting it to where I say that's what I want to fish with, and then being able to put it in production, and then have other people go out there and catch big bass on baits that were just a concept in your head. To me, that's really cool. That to me is probably one of the biggest things, you know, when you get those personal messages, you know, on Facebook and social about, you know, hey, I bought my first McStick, my first McDart, my first Little John, and you know, caught the best fish of my life. Those are the things to me, no matter how much tournament success you have, that to me really brings the joy out of what I've done. To me, there's two things that make it to where you've made it as a bait designer. This is the way I look at it. Is you got to have at least 5 baits that are out there on the market. You can't 1 or 2, not as much. At least five baits. You're in that category. And then the biggest bass that are caught on all of those baits are not the ones you've caught. Exactly. If the customers and people out there have caught bigger bass than you have on it, that means you have made it as a bait designer. I can see that for sure.